Case already won them. All right, we got His Excellency Donald Duke in the building. I want to welcome him right here.
Good morning. Welcome
guys.
to the Morning Rush.
All right, good to have you. You've been, I think it's your first time here, probably, yeah.
Other than coming to say hi to Chris, but
Yeah, okay. So now you come to our level, so we're going to face you squarely. All right.
I'm scared.
No, don't be scared. We're going to have lots of fun.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, for those who don't know who you are, we know you as former governor of Cross River State, and so give us a little idea of how you started off from maybe from uni, maybe your student union days, and also how you got into politics. It's basically a little establishment of who the real Donald Duke is, as you call yourself on social media.
Well, thank you, Alyssa. Donald, born in '61, and middle income family. My father was in the public service, school in Lagos, secondary school in Sokoto, University and Ilorin, and university in Zaria. Studied law. I got into politics in university. I was in the Students' Union government. I was about 19 then. Then at 30, I became a commissioner for finance, budget and planning. Then member of the National Economic Intelligence Committee between 94 and 99. Governor at 37, 99 to 2007. So by 45, I'd retired from being governor.
Public support 45. But you ran, I think it was 2011, was it?
Yes, in 2006,
Yeah.
I threw my hat in. We had, the system was a bit different then. It wasn't really the most democratic of systems. So we had the anointed one, Umaru Yar'Adua. The rest is history.
Yeah, but I must point out something. I think I was in uni in 2000. I think I just got into university in 2006 when you were running, and
So you were just getting in when I was leaving?
Yeah, when you were
See your
leaving.
life.
I know. So I think your campaign was one of the. You stood out. Your pictures, your message, everything. What a whole lot of people are saying right now is because between 2007 and now, there's been like a gap. You've been relatively quiet, and you know, in leading up to 2019, that's next year, you running for president right now. So a whole lot of people have said, okay, you have not been in our faces, so why should that? Why, if I go to the ballot, why am I voting for Donald Duke?
Well, I have a track record. That's important.
Okay.
And we really, in assessing our country today, we ought to be very critical. In 2015, we had folks who just wanted change, as it were. So it was any other person but the incumbent. And I'm not sure we're better off for that. Now the question is, between '07 and today, what have I been doing? What was I doing before? I was in the private sector. The ambition has always been there, but you've got to look at the opportunity. And if ambition and opportunity don't coalesce, then you're not going to make it.
Sure.
So you look for the right opening. 2011, was a very sentimental period in this country. You had a government, Umaru had passed on, Jonathan was coming in, there was a sentiment to the minority and this and that, it would be foolhardy. 2015, the focus was just change the government. But now I think the system has matured to a point where it's not just about changing the government, but who is in government. And I'm selling my track record. And I want all the others to try and sell their track record if they have any.
Sure.
You certainly can't give what you don't have. And I think you've got to have an administration that is attuned to the current dynamics of the nation. You have a very young population that is seeking opportunity, seeking means of expressing themselves, but you have a government that is totally out of sync with that, and so they don't understand it. For instance, if you may allow me, this country has a huge number of unemployed people. They're educated, they're in the prime of their lives where they're bustling with energies, they're exposed to all sorts of information globally, so they have tremendous amount of ideas. But it's frustrating because the system doesn't allow them to express themselves. And the government is totally out of sync with it. I have spoken to folks about, let's take the credit system in Nigeria. You want to expand the growth of the economy, you want to get the economy more inclusive of Nigerians, then you charge interest rates of 30%. You've locked out everyone because there's hardly any business you would do that would generate enough income to service just the interest. I'm not talking about the cost of your overheads, just the interest alone. And the government themselves are aware of it because they have special windows in the CBN that does not exceed 7%. So they know where the problem is, but they lack the will to make it a national thing. So you have a country with different exchange rates, 3 or 5, depending on what you're doing. You can't run a country like that. Some folks have said, oh, you've got to have a special window for agriculture. No, if you have an affordable interest rate, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of how diverse your interests may be, you can lock into the system and prosper.
Yeah, but the problem right now is that when you look at things like interest rates or the exchange rates and all of that, you also have to look at the value of the currency at the same time. The fact that we still spend most of our what we make or what we generate doing. We're still importing offshoots of crude oil. At the same time, we're not exporting anything. So when the talk of let's devalue the currency came, I said you can't devalue the currency of a country that doesn't export. So when countries like Japan or China does that, it's because rather than buy the Mercedes-Benz, buy the Toyota, buy the Toyota that they make. So at the end of the day, I think most of it's like anybody that's even coming in right now is having to start from the beginning, because right now I'm already expecting talk around let's not import fuel anymore. Let us start to push out more exports. And nothing is being done. You look at Apapa. I was having a conversation with someone the other day that the grid lock in Apapa, when you look at the map and you see where the Atlantic Ocean starts from, why are there no ports in all those coastal states? So you can be able to stop all those containers from coming into Lagos. So all those trailers that
you already have the ports. You have ports in Sapele is now a naval base. You have Warri, you have Port Harcourt, you have Calabar. These ports are hardly used, right? If you're traveling out of Lagos and going eastwards, right, just look at you're sitting on the right side of the aircraft.
Yeah.
You'll see a lineup of ships waiting to berth, right? They're there accruing demurrage. The nation is paying for it. We're bleeding. You see, you're going to continue importing if your people don't go into manufacture.
Okay.
Folks won't go into manufacture because the cost of money is unaffordable.
Yeah. Or we don't even have electricity.
Yeah, but you can deal with that. That's another thing. Here you are, you have a nation that flares up to recently, about 2.5 billion cubic feet of gas.
Yeah.
2.5 billion cubic feet of gas is about 25 million liters of diesel. We flare that daily.
All right, excellent. Let's not go into too much detail because we don't have that much time. But what I can say is, everything you're saying sounds sweet. Everybody, not
Very
just you, but people are full of great ideas. But the problem that with a lot of young people have,
I'll tell you the difference.
Is skepticism
I'll
about
tell you the difference.
what happens when you get in. Who are you going to owe what to? Who's going to put you in? People are saying, oh, Donald Duke's being supported by Obasanjo, being supported by X, Y, and Z. So are you going to go in there and be like Yaradua and be Obasanjo's stooge? Are you going to, what's going to be different about you?
Listen, that's why I talked about track record.
Yeah.
Right. In politics, you want everyone to support you. If Obasanjo wants to support me, he's welcome. If Buhari wants to support me, oh God, by all means, I'll open the door for him. So it's not an exclusive game. Right. It's an inclusive game. Each and every one of us come on board. But I have demonstrated, and probably that's why I wasn't president in 2007, that I'm my own man, and I'll do what I think is right. Because when you get into an office like president, governor, where you deal with the future of people, you've got to, at the end of the day, you report to your conscience and to God, not to man. And that is my mantra. I'm too independent for that. And my track record speaks that in volumes. Now, young people, I know they're cynical. They were born into an era where there's so much that could be done. This is a developing country. There's so much we have not done. And we have failed them consistently, not only at the federal level. The state governors, most of them are looking like jokes these days. Local governments hardly exist. So they're rightly cynical, but their cynicism should not lead to their own destruction. Rather, they should put their hands on the plow and get the country moving. They should get involved. They should scrutinize the folks who want to lead them. They shouldn't just accept them. It's not a popularity contest. It's their future is at stake.
Okay. Your track record you mentioned, which you mentioned a few times, and thank you for also talking about you can't give what you don't have, which I keep telling my girlfriends. Thank you for confirming that. So please, every guy use that line from His Excellency. Don't you? Tell your girlfriend I can't give what I don't have. You know?
I hope they're listening.
Yeah, right. So, but on a serious note now, track record you mentioned it a couple of times now. We have latched onto that. Track record in Cross River State, Tinapa. It's dead in the water.
The cattle ranch.
Cattle ranch. It's dead in the water. Is that a track record you want to boast about? You know?
Yes, because it was not dead in my time.
Okay.
It was dead in my time. It
Shots.
was up and thriving, right? I've
Yeah.
done my shift.
All right.
You know, look, if you run this station today and it's doing well, then you leave, and 2 years down the line, it's not doing as well as when it was when you were here. No one should hold you responsible. I got Tinapa up. We run a shift system. After my shift, someone else took over, and he dropped he dropped the ball. Obudu was adjudged by far the best tourist resort in all of West and Central Africa, the fourth best resort in all of Africa. Today it's a sham. So it's a failure of continuity, but it's also the bane of our system. Look at Ajaokuta. Ajaokuta is by far one of the saddest investments in this country. If you build Ajaokuta today, it could cost you up to $10 billion to put that facility up and running. But we left it. We just walked away as if nothing existed, you know. And we talk about it. It's nice to talk about it. So Tinapa next to Ajaokuta is child's play. But it just shows you that there's something fundamentally wrong somewhere. And it's unconscionable that it should be allowed to happen. Tinapa was designed to turn around Cross River. It's still there, the infrastructure. What I did is still there, well built, but they don't appreciate the vision, or they're too selfish to key into it.
Okay, hi, sir. So, Mr. Duke, you mentioned.
Let me hear a female voice.
Exactly. You guys have been talking enough now.
Yeah.
It's my turn. So you mentioned youth before, and I might get a bit personal now. So, speaking as a young lady in Nigeria, there are some things that I look at. So if you are successful and you do become president of Nigeria, when you now get into office, what happens to your children or your grandkids? What happens to healthcare? Are you going to go abroad and seek healthcare abroad? Are you going to send your kids or your grandkids to university abroad? Because at the end of the day, you spoke very articulately, and we appreciate that, about all the things you want to achieve, and we appreciate that. But the problem is, we feel like a lot of the future presidents, when they get into office, everything changes. Funds from somewhere come across. They now send their kids, their family abroad. The best universities spend a lot of money. Spend a lot of money on.
Can I stop you there?
Very different things.
I said, you know,
for example, you know, all of my friends, all the wives, they go abroad to go and have their kids. Why can't we have our children here and hospitals here? This is a really huge problem. Healthcare, education is a really, really huge problem, and I know it's not something that can be achieved in one term, or maybe two terms.
Can I comment?
But we want to see
that's the thing about the
something.
girls. When the women, once they start, they don't stop.
That wasn't very nice. Excuse me.
I have
You
3
guys
daughters,
have been talking
so I
all
know
day.
this.
You guys have been talking all day.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, go on.
It's a question. It requires an answer.
Okay, I'm listening, Mr. Duke.
Okay. There are 4 things, to my mind, we ought to do to get this country up and running.
Okay.
Skills, not education. Education is not. It's beyond reading and writing. At the end of the day, your education should leave you with a skill. So it's skills, health, infrastructure, and technology. Now, if I had my way, I would make it really difficult for a child to leave to school abroad until you're 18 years and above. Why? Because between the time you start school and 18, we need to indigenize you enough so that you're well grounded. Okay? We send kids abroad as early as 9, 7. We think it's elitist, but we're uprooting the child. The child is neither here nor there. Okay? And they're totally dysfunctional. You need to be rooted. I told you, I went to school in Sokoto. I went to school in Zaria. I know this country. Now, healthcare. How many of us can go abroad? The vast majority can't,
Not a lot.
right? So it's delusional for us to continue this system. We need to have the right ratios of doctors, which is about 1 doctor to about 100 people. Actually, Nigeria needs about 2 million doctors or 2 million medical practitioners. We don't have the numbers. And the few we have, they're migrating because the conditions are not right here. Now, in Cross River, we had a system. We had a primary health care center for every political ward, the 194 political wards in the state. A general hospital for every local government. Then a tertiary institution for every senatorial district. And it was working. We were training the personnel and all that. But even more importantly, you also have to have a system where healthcare is affordable, right? You could have all the hospitals, but if I can't afford it, you go to the hospital and ask to deposit 20,000, I don't have it. It's not. So you need to have an insurance system that caters for everyone. Not everyone has a job. Not everyone can afford it. For those who can't afford it, are paid for by those who can. So the insurance system is so wide and all that. I know people talk about all the fear there'll be fraud and all that, but you don't throw a good idea away just because you're afraid that it'll be defrauded. You try and check and make sure that there are very stringent consequences for those who defraud the system. We need to build up our healthcare system here. We have doctors, look, 10% of the medical personnel in the United Kingdom are Nigerians. 10%. Not of Zimbabwe, not of Congo, of the United Kingdom. You need to find a way of bringing it in here. You need to find a way. Look, this guy spent about 7-8 years getting trained, right, to make it worth their while. And we can. Our biggest strength is our numbers. So we need to make those numbers work for us. I intend, given the opportunity, like I said, to ensure that everything that can be done in Nigeria is done in Nigeria. We are hemorrhaging. We pay for school fees. We pay for medical. We pay for everything. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I spoke to a friend who wasn't feeling too good. And he said to me that when he travels, he'll do his med. I said, you probably have malaria. How would they know you have malaria in London? But he wants to go do his medical check in the UK. So it's a function of will. It was really sad, and we had the opportunity the president had the opportunity to make a statement, and now I'm being personal, even on his health issues, right? Even if we don't have the personnel to deal with it, you can bring them in, your president, and it's seen that you're receiving the treatment here. Look, when Boris Yeltsin had his bypass as president of Russia, the Americans went to Moscow to treat him, but they didn't fly him out of the country. We need to work on a few things. We're not getting it right. I have a voter's card.
Yes, I do.
I do.
You don't sound confident.
I do. I don't know why you're asking me questions. I'm asking you the questions. So can we double it back? Yeah, so if you are, will you be seeking healthcare abroad if you need it? That's a very important question.
No.
Okay.
So we will hold you to
and
that.
I want to, please hold me to it. And I'll say this. I'm not saying that I'm suicidal, right? If you're on the throes of death, as president, look, listen to the amount of money that is budgeted for the
State House
Clinic.
Yeah.
That will set up the best hospitals in the world, right? And if you need to bring personnel in, you can bring them in. But it's also important that you afford your people confidence within the country. So I'll be in.
Yeah, just to add one more thing, you have very great ideas as regards infrastructure, healthcare, but the problem right now is that how do we get money to fund all these ideas? Because we look at the system where they're spending a lot of money on recurrent expenditure, salaries, running governments, fueling of vehicles. So the problem right now,
Governors can't pay salaries.
yeah. So the problem right now is the fact that's a story for another day. Is the fact that the government is telling the citizens to actually take cuts. Okay, we can't pay this, we can't pay that. But at the same time, the president is still flying his plane. The convoys are not reducing. The same cost of running government is still the same thing. So the problem right now is the fact that if we're not going to take cuts or we're not going to reduce the size of government so we can push money to infrastructure, health, or some other thing, I think it's going to be the same. It's like we're going round in a circle.
Let me tell you a few things. You can conveniently cut your recurrent expenditure by 40%, and none of us would notice it. I mean, the State House Clinic thing was evident.
Sure.
40% of your recurrent expenditure could be cut and transferred to capital. That's one.
Yeah.
Two, look at your tax system. You don't collect, and the government admits this, right? if you have, with a $500 billion GDP, you should be generating about 25% of that as your tax base, okay? There are few things you can do to reverse all that. If I said, for instance, by the 31st of March every year, any company or corporation that has not paid and filed its taxes cannot operate any of its accounts in Nigeria, you would see the reverse. The amount of money that will pour in, there are companies that don't pay because, nobody willingly wants to pay. There's compulsion in paying these things. We're not talking about increasing. Just improve the revenue generation and deal with the waste within the system. There are a few other things I won't even want to mention here.
But we can mention your friends in the National Assembly.
Of course.
They're all your friends now.
You've got
ex-governors.
I said
who
all of
become
them. Everyone
senators.
come together. I'll
So
tell
we,
you what.
we need to bring the numbers of the money being spent on
If the executive is still spending the way it is, it becomes difficult to ask any other arm of government to. So start with the executive. Cut recurring by 40. Ask them to do same. You can't ask the judiciary. The judiciary actually needs more money.
Yeah.
Right? Those guys are being.
We don't know how much a senator in Nigeria earns. We don't know how much.
No one knows.
No, nobody
It's
knows.
shrouded in mystery.
So I mean,
You
how
know?
can that? It
So-
doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
You've got to sit down and have a system whereby, listen, and that, listen, this is going to take a long
Yeah,
discussion.
no, but we're gonna cut it. No worry.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've got to get a government that is inclusive and they're all in sync. We've got to grow their country. The National Assembly never submits its budget. The federal government submits a budget. The National Assembly does whatever it wants to do. It shouldn't be that way. Rather, all arms of government, state government, governors, National Assembly, you submit your budget estimate, what you want done. Then you have a holistic document that is sent to the National Assembly. But if the federal government should decide that they were going to cut overheads by 40%, I think they could, on the back of that, get the National Assembly to do same. But if you're going to continue spending and living a high life and asking the other arm of government to be frugal,
Yeah.
it wouldn't work.
Yeah, one more thing.
Yeah, we gotta
I know. Just one last question. One of the issues that's plagued Nigeria since I think former President Yar'Adua was the issue of insecurity. We've had Boko Haram from like 2007 up now, and it seems that no government has been able to find like a lasting solution, to the issue. So, what are you going to do about that?
Boko Haram?
Yeah, insecurity generally.
Okay, let me just take a few things. Let's take Plateau. Recently, 200 folks were killed there. There are no consequences to anyone. You have security guys, you have a commissioner of police, you have intelligence officers, you have DSS, you have brigade commander. No one is asked, no one is brought to book. They are paid to protect us. In a normal system, those guys will immediately go on administrative leave. They'll be investigated. They could be charged for criminal negligence. Once you get people responsible for their work, your intelligence officers, you should know this. 200 people are slaughtered and nothing happens. You go back and you have your job. That's the first thing. So consequences is an important part of it. Boko Haram, you need to go back to the root. How folks were killed, it started off by government. The governor who did it, who started it,
He's still around.
He's walking the streets. Nobody's asking questions, right? And why is it thriving? The military that you're sending there to quell, they're underpaid, under-well-fed, right? And so they compromise. Sometimes they sell ammunitions. All the ammunitions by Boko Haram and Nigerian ammunitions. You give a soldier 500 naira a day for his welfare in a battlefront where there's no food available. Sometimes these guys have to put themselves together to enable them pull enough resources to feed themselves. And you think that they're going to put their lives on the line? That's a problem. And you also note that the northeastern part of this country is the poorest part of the country. It used to be Nigeria's cotton belt. And when our textile mills failed because of unbridled imports, right, cotton died off as a crop. And so it became a fertile place for these sort of things. And it's not the first time. Boko Haram is just about the second or third. We've had a lot of militancy cloaked on a religious garb, but it has nothing to do with religion.
Okay. All right. Well,
Alice is going to kill me. Albuquerque's going to kill me. So
Things are interesting. That's why she wants to.
Speaking of,
Go ahead.
Speaking in terms of Nigeria as a whole, and you just mentioned the north, etc. There's been a lot of talk or murmur about Nigeria breaking up into different parts. What are your thoughts on that?
No way. I believe we should restructure. It's important.
So it should stay.
Right? We should restructure the country, but no one has to be left behind. our strength, our relevancy as a people is because we're Nigerians, we're all together. 200 million people under the same roof is an incredible number. The problem is get those people productive, so it's not just a meaningless number, it's a productive number. No, we can't afford to.
Hey, well, love it. We're like the U.S. Marines. No one gets left behind.
Fantastic.
All right. So, any just quick sentence for hope for future for young people out there listening? What do you want to tell them?
Guys,
Quickly before we
I
wrap
know
up.
you're complacent. I know that you are worried. Complacency is born out of disillusionment, but you can't. It's your nation. Sooner or later, it will fall on your lap. And if you don't get up and put your hand on the plow, then it'll be a sad story. So get involved.
All right, thank you. Right up. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for coming through, Donald Duke. We're going to round off now by playing Duke's daughter's song. So, musical family. So we'll be having some big gigs in the Aso Rock if he wins. Some big concert. This is Kay Sanzarona in the end. Thanks for coming through. Nice one.